Jerome Lester Horwitz, better known by his stage name Curly Howard, is one of the most beloved and recognizable comedy icons in American cinema history. As a member of the Three Stooges, Curly captivated millions of audiences with his boundless energy, his trademark physical comedy, like the fall and the shoulder spin, his unforgettable catchphrases, and the naive, chaotic quality he brought to his shorts. During his prime years at Columbia Pictures, 1934-1946, Curly was often considered the centerpiece of the trio, elevating the skits from mere comedy to an art form of comedic timing and creativity. Even Curly's colleague Larry Fine commented that Curly was the greatest natural comedian because he had no formal training and everything he did was improvised. But behind the infectious laughter and the image of a clown who never grew up, there was a much darker and more tragic story, ending with Curly's early death at the age of 48 in 1952 after a series of serious strokes. His life was a series of profound paradoxes, where insecurity, loneliness, and mental health issues were hidden under a cloak of public brilliance. What makes the mystery of Curly Howard's sudden physical and mental decline so poignant, far beyond the surface explanations of a self-indulgent lifestyle? Was he simply a worn-out artist, collapsed from stress and poor health habits, leading to a devastating stroke in 1946 while filming Half-Wit's Holiday? Or is there something deeper hidden in the glamorous yet dark life of a star, related to the pressure of the Hollywood studio system and the astonishing indifference to the health of an individual, a tragedy of human exploitation for profit? Let's find out the exact truth about this fateful tragedy, peeling back the layers of tragedy to better understand the talented but ill-fated artist, whose decline was not as beautiful as the public expected. Jerome Lester Horwitz was born on October 22, 1903, in the Bensonhurst section of Brooklyn, New York. He was the youngest of 5 sons of Jenny and Solomon Horwitz, of Lithuanian Jewish descent. As the youngest, he was nicknamed Babe by his brothers, a name he kept all his life, although he was later renamed Curly to avoid confusion with Gertrude Frank, the wife of his brother Shemp, who was also nicknamed Babe. In contrast to his wild, on-screen image, Howard was a quiet child who rarely caused trouble for his parents, something his brothers Mo and Shemp excelled at. He was an average student but excelled as an athlete on the school basketball team. He did not graduate from high school, instead working odd jobs and often following his idols, his older brothers. Curly's life was marred early with physical and emotional scars. At age 13, he accidentally shot himself in the left ankle while cleaning his rifle. Mo rushed him to the hospital, saving his life, but the wound left him with a noticeably thinner left leg and a slight limp. Curly never corrected the gait because he was so afraid of surgery. Later, while starring in the Three Stooges, he developed his famous exaggerated gait to cleverly conceal his limp on screen. The turning point in his career came in 1932. After Curly's brother, Shemp Howard, became fed up with manager Ted Healy's rough-and-tumble attitude and alcoholism, Shemp left the group. Mo suggested that his younger brother, Jerry, could fill the third role. Healy was initially unimpressed with Jerry's performance, saying he looked too handsome with his thick chestnut hair and elegant mustache. In response to Healy's request, Howard left the room and returned a few minutes later with a shaved head, although the mustache remained for a very short time. This physical change sold the act to Healy, and Jerome Horwitz officially became Curly Howard. After Mo split from Healy in 1934 due to financial and rights issues, the Three Stooges signed a contract with Columbia Pictures to produce 2 reel shorts. Their third short, Men in Black, 1934, was nominated for an Oscar and cemented their status as the new stars of comedy. Columbia paid each member $20,500 per short, a huge sum at the time. Curly quickly became a favorite star. Curly's appeal lay in his boyish demeanor, natural comedic charm, and great ability to improvise. He was not a trained actor, but his comedic skills were extraordinary. Directors often let the camera roll freely so Curly could improvise. Jules White, a director and producer, specifically left gaps in the script for Curly to fill with woo-woo sounds or other humorous actions. Curly's career peaked with classics. My A Plumbing We Will Go, 1940. This work showcased Curly's ability to turn inanimate objects, such as pipes, into comedic props. An Ache in Every Steak, 1941. A prime example of his improvisational and boundless creativity, as he used food and utensils to create farce. Disorder in the Court, 1936. This short, in which Curly chews gum and makes a goofy face, showcases physical humor and hyper-realistic expressions. His signature Brooklyn-accented reactions and expressions have become part of American popular culture. These include "Nyuk, nyuk, nyuk," a signature laugh accompanied by frantic finger-snapping, "Woo, woo, woo," a cry of joy, fear, or flirtation, and "I'm a victim of circumstance. I am a victim of circumstance." Despite his stage persona, Curly was a reserved and introverted person in real life, in stark contrast to his lively on-screen persona. He often avoided social interactions unless under the influence of alcohol. Curly had 4 marriages. 1. Julia Rosenthal, 1930 to 1931. A brief marriage lasting only 5 months, ending in divorce, signaling the instability of his relationships. 2. Elaine Ackerman, 1937 to 1940. This marriage seemed more stable, and they had a daughter, Marilyn, in 1938. However, the pressures of work and Curly's erratic lifestyle led to their divorce in 1940. 3. Marion Buxbaum, 1945 to 1946. A short-lived marriage, after only 2 weeks of courtship. The divorce was acrimonious, heavily publicized by the media, exacerbating his already fragile health. The divorce was finalized just 2 months after his fateful stroke. 4. Valerie Newman, 1947 to 1952. Valerie was Curly's most stable wife, providing him with peace and support. They had a daughter, Janie, born in 1948. Curly's underlying tragedy revolved around his deep insecurity about his shaved head, which he believed made him less attractive to women. To cope with this, he increasingly abused alcohol and became overly social. Although Moe forbade alcohol while performing, Curly frequented nightclubs after hours, where he ate, drank, and sought out friends to cope with his exhaustion and loneliness. Curly's spending habits were also extremely extravagant. He spent money like water on alcohol, food, women, and real estate, often on the verge of bankruptcy. Moe Howard eventually stepped in, becoming his brother's unofficial financial advisor, helping him budget and even prepare his income tax returns. Despite the turmoil in his personal life, Curly had a deeply gentle and compassionate side, which he showed through his special love for stray dogs. He frequently adopted them on tour, cared for them, and found new homes for them, a detail that contrasted sharply with the image of a man who drank and spent lavishly. Ironically, however, it was during the peak years of his fame that tragedy struck Curly Howard. Around 1944, Curly's energy began to wane. His voice became deeper and his movements more sluggish in films such as Idle Rumors, 1944, and Booby Dupes, 1945. It is believed that he suffered the first of several strokes between late 1944 and early 1945. In January 1945, Moe Howard convinced Curly to seek medical attention. He was diagnosed with severe hypertension, retinal hemorrhages, and obesity. Although Moe repeatedly urged Harry Cohn, president of Columbia Pictures, to give his brother a long leave of absence to recover, Cohn refused, not wanting to disrupt the Stooges' lucrative production schedule of shorts. The climax of the tragedy occurred on May 6, 1946. While filming Half-Wit's Holiday, his last film as a regular cast member, Curly suffered a massive stroke while sitting in director Jules White's chair, waiting to shoot his final scene. When called upon to act, he did not respond. Moe found his brother with his head bowed to his chest, his mouth twisted, unable to speak, only to cry. Curly was rushed to the hospital, ending his career in the entertainment industry. After the stroke in 1946, many fans believed it was an isolated event, caused by an unhealthy lifestyle and work stress. However, those close to him noticed that the decline had been going on for a long time. His performance fluctuated during 1946, sometimes sharp and sometimes very slow, as director Edward Burns noted. Shemp Howard's hiring as Curly's replacement was initially meant to be temporary, as per the Stooges' 1947 contract, until Curly recovered. But no official statement was ever made about Curly's condition or Shemp's replacement, suggesting a cover-up of the severity of the illness. Recent revelations, drawn from medical records, family documents, and behind-the-scenes testimony, paint a much more dire picture than the public ever knew. The mystery has been solved, and the truth is not pretty. The 1946 stroke was not an isolated event. Further investigation revealed that Curly had suffered multiple transient ischemic attacks over the previous few years, warning signs of which had been ignored or tragically misinterpreted. Severe hypertension, diagnosed in 1945, was a direct result of the prolonged exhaustion. Medical experts now reviewing Curly's case believe he may have had undiagnosed bipolar disorder or another neuropsychiatric condition, exacerbated by his heavy alcohol use, a common coping mechanism to assuage the insecurities, loneliness, and feelings of inadequacy of a shy man playing a maniacal clown on screen. This is a much darker and more disturbing detail than most people expect. Instead of providing sustained medical support or giving Curly proper rest, Columbia Pictures pushed him to continue performing as long as he could stand. Studio memos from this period reveal a startling indifference to Curly's health, suggesting either get him up for another picture or covering up his condition to avoid public concern. Mo Howard, as the older brother and unofficial leader, tried to fight for his younger brother, but his influence was limited in a system designed to prioritize profit over people. After being removed from the trio, Curly lived out his later years in near oblivion. He attempted a brief cameo as a snoring and barking passenger on the train in the short film Hold That Lion, 1947. This is the only film to feature all three Howard brothers, Mo, Shemp, and Curly, simultaneously. However, his health continued to decline. A second stroke in late 1948 left him partially paralyzed. By 1950, he was confined to a wheelchair. Curly's mental condition also deteriorated, to the point that in December 1951, the hospital informed his family that they could no longer care for him because he had become a problem for the nursing staff due to his mental deterioration. Mo refused to commit Curly to a psychiatric hospital, instead transferring him to another sanatorium. Curly Howard died on January 18, 1952, at the age of 48, after Mo made one last attempt to transfer him. His death was not reported in the press with the fanfare or commemoration that his contributions deserved. The New Truth exposes a story of neglect, discrimination, and the price of fame in an era that demanded laughter at all costs. Curly was not just a funny man who died. He was a vulnerable human being who was failed by a system that did not understand how to care for him. The true nature of this tragedy is the horrifying paradox between his public image as a source of never-ending joy and his personal reality as a person struggling with serious illness, both physical and mental, in loneliness and exploitation. The truth that is resolved is this: Curly did not just die of illness. He died because he was pushed beyond his limits by the pressures of a heartless industry. The tragedy of Curly Howard is a case study in the toxic intersection of personal trauma and systemic exploitation in the entertainment industry. Curly was a quiet person, insecure about his appearance, his shaved head, and lacking coping skills. This led to him using alcohol and excessive social behavior as an escape mechanism. If Curly did suffer from bipolar disorder or other psychiatric conditions, these problems were exacerbated by his erratic lifestyle and work pressure. Despite his lack of formal training, Curly was a genius at improvisation and physical comedy. However, his comedy routines, which included heavy falls and exaggerated movements, placed a heavy burden on his body, especially during the intense tours supporting the troops during World War II. This relentless schedule was a contributing factor in the development of severe hypertension. Pictures under the leadership of Harry Cohn completely put profit over health and human life. Cohn refused to give Curly a break despite Moe's pleas, and the studio later sought to cover up his deterioration. This neglect turned a manageable health problem into an irreversible crisis. The tipping point was not the stroke of 1946, but Curly being forced to continue working in a state of marked deterioration. His voice grew rougher. His lines became harder to remember. From 1944 to 1946, the most devastating moment was when he suffered a stroke and Moe found him in the director's chair, unable to speak, only able to cry. That moment marked the public and permanent downfall of a man whom the system had exploited to the very end. The revelation of the neglect of Columbia Pictures and the possibility of Curly's hidden mental illness is far more tragic than simply a star who died young. Curly was famous for his indestructible head, which always won when hit with a hammer or saw. The dark truth is that it is the head, mental and physical, that is the most fragile, destroyed by stress and illness. Curly's tragedy is a reminder that those who bring the greatest joy to the public often suffer the most hidden pain. The truth exposes the lack of ethics in organizations that are willing to hide illness and sacrifice the health of their employees just to maintain profits. The blame cannot be placed solely on one party. Curly Howard is responsible for his unhealthy lifestyle, alcohol abuse, and spending. However, the greatest moral responsibility lies with Columbia Pictures and its president, Harry Cohn. They were the ones with the power to provide care and respite, but they chose to refuse in order to protect the production schedule, making Curly a victim of exploitation by the system. Moe Howard acted as a devoted protector, both financially and physically, but even the brothers' loyalty could not withstand the pressures of the studio. The tragedy of Curly Howard goes beyond the personal story of a comedian. It reflects the eternal human struggle between a perfect public image and an inner brokenness. It is a warning about the exploitative nature of consumerism and the inhumanity of corporations in dealing with their human resources. The truth revealed forces us to confront the reality that those who bring the greatest joy can also suffer the deepest pain in silence. The life of Jerome Lester Horwitz, Curly Howard, is a symphony of contrasts. He was a shy, insecure man, searching for love and stability, who had to play the role of a chaotic, carefree child to make a living. His brilliant career brought laughter to millions, but at the cost of a complete physical and mental breakdown as he was pushed to the brink by the studio system. Curly Howard's legacy is not just his classic short films, but also a heartbreaking warning about the dangers of exploiting talent and the dangers of putting profit over human health. He gave everything to make people happy, even as his own life was falling apart. Ultimately, the mystery of Curly's decline was solved, revealing a story of exploitation and neglect, a truth that was not pretty. Now that we know the full truth about the invisible burdens and indifference Curly faced, will the exposed truth about the price Curly paid change the way we consume and demand laughter from celebrities? Or will we still accept silent tragedy as an inevitable condition of fame?